Before Wolfenstein was a video game, it was a nightmare built from real history. The world of Wolfenstein is dark, brutal, and surreal. A twisted vision of what could have happened if the Nazis had won World War II. Mecha soldiers, genetic experiments, occult rituals, or resistance, clinging to hope in the shadow of a fascist superpower. But behind all the sci-fi horror is something even more disturbing. The historical truths that inspired it. Let's break it down. The Nazis in Wolfenstein aren't just villains, they're myth makers, scientists, engineers of terror, and that's not far from reality. In real life, Hitler's regime heavily invested in experimental technology. The Nazis were obsessed with building wonder weapons, or Wunderwaffe advanced, jet fighters, guided missiles, and even early ideas that would lead to the modern assault rifle, the V2 rocket. That was real. So was the ambition to conquer the skies and beyond. In Wolfenstein, you see giant robot dogs and armored soldiers patrolling the streets. It feels like science fiction, but the seeds of these concepts came from actual Nazi weapons labs. German engineers like Werner von Braun, who later worked on NASA's Apollo program, were deeply involved in developing war tech that could have changed history if given enough time. Then there's the occult. One of Wolfenstein's signature elements is the Nazi fascination with ancient relics and mystical powers. Sounds wild until you realize it's rooted in truth. The Nazi SS under Heinrich Himmler had departments focused on researching ancient artifacts, Aryan mythology, and even supernatural phenomena. They sent expeditions to Tibet, searched for the Holy Grail, and tried to trace supposed Aryan origins through pseudo-science and mythology. This wasn't fantasy. This was part of their ideology, the belief that they were destined to rule not just politically, but spiritually and racially. Wolfenstein amplifies these ideas, turning them into horrifying machines, occult powers, and monstrous experiments. But at its core, it's a reflection of how dangerous unchecked belief in power can become. Then there's the setting, a world where the Nazis actually won. This alternate history isn't just for shock value, it's a thought experiment. What if the Normandy invasion had failed? What if Hitler had acquired nuclear weapons before the Allies? What if the US had fallen to internal collapse and Europe remained under Nazi control? Games like Wolfenstein The New Order explore a timeline where Germany uses superior tech, brutal suppression, and global propaganda to create a terrifying new world order. And it forces players to imagine, what does resistance look like in a world where freedom has been erased? But what makes Wolfenstein truly powerful is its emotional center, the human fight against fascism. B.J. Blazkowicz isn't just a soldier with a big gun. He's a symbol, he's Jewish, he's broken, he's seen what the world became, and he refuses to stop fighting. That's more than a power fantasy. It's a tribute to the real men and women of the resistance. The partisans, the spies, the defectors, and the ordinary. People who risked everything to stand against tyranny. Wolfenstein exaggerates reality. That's the point. But the bones of the story, the ideology, the ambition, the cruelty, all of it comes from our own past. The uniforms, the flags, the experiments, the erasure of truth. They didn't come from a creative writing room. They came from history books, war museums, and eyewitness accounts. The game is fiction, but the fear behind it, that's real. So why does it matter? Because when we see history reimagined, when we experience the horror of a Nazi victory in a game, we're reminded why the real world fought so hard to stop it. Wolfenstein is violent, intense, and extreme, but it's also a mirror. It forces us to look at what was possible and what we must never allow again. In the end, Wolfenstein isn't just about shooting bad guys. It's about remembering the cost of silence, the price of complicity, and the power of resistance even when the world seems lost. That's the real story behind Wolfenstein. Not just the fiction, but the facts we must never forget.